On August 6, 1945, a normal day in Hiroshima, the peaceful people of Japan's busiest industrial city were bustling about preparing for a new workday. A light breeze from the river carried the warmth of the early morning. Shops opened, footsteps echoed on the streets, and the sunlight heralded a new day full of hope. But in the blink of an eye, the peace of Hiroshima was shattered. At 8:15 a.m., a strategic bomber from the United States dropped a black object named Little Boy with a destructive power equivalent to 15,000 tons of trinitrotoluene. When the object hit the ground, a massive wave of energy spread out, engulfing Hiroshima in darkness and chaos. A gigantic fireball erupted from the center of the explosion, a symbol of destruction and disintegration. Its temperature surpassed even that of the sun, causing everything around it to melt away. The explosion generated an intense hot wind and a powerful heat wave, obliterating everything within a radius of more than 10 kilometers. Houses, trees, people, everything was annihilated in the horrific blast. In that moment, the sky over Hiroshima lost its color due to the bomb's terrifying light, rendering everyone temporarily blind. But that was not the most horrifying part. A colossal shockwave spread faster than the speed of sound, flattening the city into a wasteland. The image of the enormous mushroom cloud became a symbol of the devastating destruction. In this world, there is a type of weapon created to save lives but ultimately used to take them. It has the capability to end wars, yet it also becomes a potential threat to the destruction of the world. It was born from human intellect and exists because of human greed. Yes, this weapon of terrifying destruction is the atomic bomb. Tonight's program will tell the tumultuous story of the father of the atomic bomb. Robert Oppenheimer was born into a wealthy German-Jewish family in New York. His father was a successful businessman, and his mother was an artist. His father provided him with a privileged upbringing, allowing him to receive a broad and high-quality education from an early age. His mother sparked his talents in literature, philosophy, and languages. It can be said that Oppenheimer received the most precious gifts from life right from birth. At the age of 18, Oppenheimer enrolled in the chemistry department at Harvard University. With his exceptional talent, he graduated early in just 3 years with honors. After graduating, Oppenheimer chose to continue his studies at the University of Cambridge in England. He wanted to pursue experimental physics research under the guidance of Rutherford, but Rutherford did not want to accept him as a student. Eventually, Thomson recognized his talent and took him in. However, it was in this paradise for chemists and physicists that Oppenheimer's previously smooth life began to encounter many obstacles. Oppenheimer had always been interested in theoretical physics, but his professor wanted him to study experimental physics, as this was the most popular research field at Harvard University. This was difficult for him to accept. During that time, he always felt that his talent and time were being wasted. Perhaps it was his smooth-sailing life from a young age that made him arrogant and daring, especially when he suddenly encountered adversity. Ultimately, he even stole chemicals from the laboratory and put them into his professor's food. Fortunately, the professor had been cautious of him and reported the incident to the school. It was then that Oppenheimer realized how terrifying his thoughts had become. The intense academic pressure had pushed him to the brink of collapse. Now that a mistake had been made, he could only try to reflect and review his actions. In the end, thanks to his apology, he reached an agreement with the school, received a suspended sentence, and underwent psychological treatment, avoiding the disaster of imprisonment. His passion for physics always drove him to be a person with a distinct personality and a strong sense of resistance, which often made him annoy others without realizing it, ultimately leading to a poor relationship with his professor. In 1926, he transferred to the University of Göttingen in Germany to study under Max Born. At that time, he still couldn't let go of his impulsive nature. He often interrupted others' speeches, went to the podium, and said that things would be better done his way. Even his professor was not spared from being embarrassed by him in front of crowds. There were indeed people who wanted to retaliate against him during his lectures. But when he stood on the podium, eloquently discussing his research on quantum mechanics, all those present, including the rebutting professors, could find no fault in his arguments. In 1939, World War II broke out. According to intelligence, Germany had begun researching the atomic bomb under Heisenberg's leadership. At that time, no one knew how powerful this weapon could be, but physicists knew that if Germany succeeded in developing the atomic bomb, the war would certainly end disastrously. It could mean a unified world or a destroyed world. Therefore, Einstein and Szilard jointly wrote a lengthy letter to U.S. President Roosevelt, urging the United States to immediately start researching the atomic bomb and to complete it before Germany. In 1942, Roosevelt issued a general mobilization order, establishing the top-secret Manhattan Project with the goal of developing the atomic bomb before Germany. Oppenheimer learned about this project and proactively approached General Groves, the head of the project. After 2 meetings, Oppenheimer's ideas and talents convinced General Groves. Ultimately, despite all opposition, General Groves appointed Oppenheimer as the director of the Los Alamos National Laboratory, giving him full responsibility for the American atomic bomb research. Despite his educational background and innate talent, Oppenheimer was fully capable of handling such a significant responsibility. However, his appointment still faced skepticism from security officials. Surveillance of Oppenheimer was not only due to doubts about his loyalty, but also concerns about the security of the Manhattan Project as a whole. Therefore, in his subsequent work, Oppenheimer was constantly monitored by the United States military and the FBI, and even as the head of the Atomic Bomb Research Project, he was denied access to some critical classified documents. Such distrust was clearly a hardship and an insult for someone as proud as Oppenheimer. But this time, Oppenheimer did not choose to give up. He remained steadfast in his belief that he must complete the atomic bomb before Germany. The United States had many top physicists, but only Oppenheimer could lead so many geniuses. Oppenheimer was like the father of the laboratory. From the preparation stage, he devoted his heart and soul to this endeavor. Even though his salary was not enough to buy a single painting in his home, he once drove for 3 days and nights in southern New Mexico to find a suitable testing site. With his exceptional talent, he was able to invite many leading scholars in physics without revealing the project. He participated in every discussion and meeting, quietly listening to everyone's debates. When they argued endlessly, he would provide a conclusion and guide everyone back on track. During this time, he faced distrust from the United States military and pressure from his superiors, but he remained unchanged, quietly leading the entire team forward. He was like a natural-born leader, calm and unwavering in the face of danger. To others, he appeared poised and at ease, but no one noticed his constant mental strain, always needing a cigar for comfort. He drank black coffee as if it were water, and his nightly coughs revealed the depth of his anxieties. In July 1945, the world's first atomic bomb exploded in the Alamogordo Desert. A red-orange ball slowly rose amidst blinding light, gradually growing larger until it became a gigantic fireball. It took over a minute before the loud explosion, accompanied by thunderous sounds, was heard. The entire sky looked like the apocalypse, with heavy rain and strong winds. That light shone on Oppenheimer's face. Confronted with such a scientific and technical miracle, he felt no joy or satisfaction and quietly said, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Indeed, Oppenheimer had achieved what he always wanted, to develop the atomic bomb before Germany. But this was now beyond his control. He felt like the one who opened Pandora's box, feeling helpless, guilty, and living in constant anxiety. When the atomic bomb exploded in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the guilt within Oppenheimer became even harder to cleanse. At a meeting of the United States Atomic Energy Commission in November 1945, he exclaimed, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." After World War II ended, Oppenheimer strove to use the United Nations to implement peaceful control and use of atomic energy. He proposed that countries, including the Soviet Union, exchange and cooperate in science to achieve relevant agreements, and opposed the United States developing the hydrogen bomb first. In 1941, his father passed away, leaving him an inheritance of $250,000, equivalent to $4.5 million today. He used this money to support international anti-fascist forces in the Spanish Civil War and fund some leftist activities in the United States. But these actions brought him trouble. In December 1953, Oppenheimer was accused of his past leftist activities and the strategic decision to delay the government's hydrogen bomb development. He was forced to undergo a security investigation and was stripped of his security clearance. In April 1954, a 4-week security hearing took place. That year, he was 51 years old, a man who had brought the United States its most powerful weapon, bearing a tremendous burden of guilt and suffering daily. A man who contributed not for money or fame, but was pushed into the abyss of suspicion by the country he loved. In Oppenheimer's heart, there was certainly confusion. He deeply loved this country. He believed that America stood for freedom and equality. He believed that America, carrying the title of a superpower, should be a nation that protects world peace and helps developing countries. He wanted to build this country to make it better. But when he faced what was called punishment, he realized that things might not be as he imagined. It wasn't until 1963 that Oppenheimer was awarded the Fermi Prize, recognizing his lifelong contributions to the development, use, and production of atomic energy. By then, he was 60 years old, having endured the highs and lows of life, becoming more profound and serene. He told the president, "Mr. President, I am very grateful to receive this prestigious award. However, I also want to say that when a person is old, honoring them doesn't mean much. Instead, support the young people, for they are the future." On February 16, 1967, the father of the atomic bomb passed away in Princeton at the age of 62. Oppenheimer had created a remarkable legacy. Some called him a devil, but from an insider's perspective, he loved America. He knew that an atomic bomb could quickly end the war and prevent the loss of thousands of soldiers' lives. He had no other choice. When the atomic bomb exploded, he tried to use it responsibly, even bearing the blame for it. How will his life be judged? I believe that the guilt in his heart overshadowed all his contributions. As he said, his hands were stained with blood, but through his remorse, we can see the conscience of a scientist.